Do you need a mic check? Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. Mic check, 1, 2. Okay, perfect.
Same to you, haven't seen you. But you know I'm now public radio guy. Back off probation. 3 months. Same old as you were.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get started shortly. If everyone will please ensure that your cell phones are on silent. Please keep all questions related to the topic that's being discussed. If there's anything else that you all would like to ask us, we'll follow the normal procedures afterwards and we'll work on getting you those answers.
It was something. An entire week in March.
Good morning.
Good morning. Sheriff T.K. Waters. I'm joined today by FBI Assistant Special Agent in Charge Sean Ryan and, of course, State Attorney Melissa Nelson. As we recognize this month, it's National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month. Each January, we convene with our partners in Northeast Florida Human Trafficking Coalition to reaffirm our commitment to ending human trafficking. We must begin by debunking the myth that these types of crimes are vestiges of history or concerns for other jurisdictions. Sadly, human trafficking is very real in our community. These are hidden crimes so well veiled that you may have seen indicators of them and simply not known. This month is so important because it focuses on educating the public about the indicators of human trafficking. Without education, even an engaged and sympathetic public will not be able to take the necessary steps to help victims of these crimes. The Department of Justice defines human trafficking as involving the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain some type of labor or commercial sex act. Human trafficking is a crime that not only typically hides in plain sight, but feeds on social disenfranchisement of its victims. Because it is a community problem, we as a community must recognize it, face it, and stop it together. Here, partnerships are so important. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office is honored to partner with the Northeast Florida Human Trafficking Coalition, a consortium of dedicated criminal justice and social service providers, all committed to ending human trafficking while providing necessary support to victims. Members of this coalition understand that we must combine public education, prevention strategies, victim support, and enforcement together to make meaningful change in the human trafficking landscape. I would like to take this opportunity to share some of the potential indicators of human trafficking. These are victim characteristics that can easily get missed in personal interactions. The existence of one or even several of these indicators is not definitive evidence of human trafficking. However, The existence of any of these indicators should put community members on alert for the possibility of human trafficking. Per the Department of Homeland Security's Blue campaign, some of these indicators are the victim's mannerisms in the presence of others, if the victim has had a sudden dramatic change in behavior, and if the victim defers to another to answer for them. If you see a person exhibiting potential signs of being trafficked, we encourage citizens to contact law enforcement. Likewise, if a concerned citizen encounters a situation that doesn't feel right, contact law enforcement. We would prefer to investigate a situation and unfound it rather than have these crimes remain underreported. Without robust reporting, these horrific crimes will continue in our community. I stand here with these committed community leaders to let you know that Jacksonville will not be silent. At this time, I would like to invite our State Attorney, Melissa Nelson, to speak.
Thank you, Sheriff. Good morning. Thank you for hosting today's event, and thank you as well to our dedicated partners, both in law enforcement and the community who commit their work to this cause. This annual press conference gives us a moment to bring awareness to this issue. Thank you for publicizing it and acknowledge the good work being done to combat the issue. Sheriff Waters just mentioned potential indicators of human trafficking, all of which are important cues that family, friends, and all of us as members of the public can and should be on the lookout for, because paying attention matters. In fact, one of our prosecutors was recently handling a matter when he identified a potential human trafficking operation. His sound call led to an investigation by our office, which culminated in the recent arrests of 2 men for multiple counts of human trafficking and for attempted first-degree murder. These traffickers used actual violence against the women they were prostituting and threats of violence to those women's families. It was through this abuse that they trapped their victims and secured their compliance. When one of the women actually escaped, they tried to kill her. Wearing masks and armed with knives, they jumped her, beat her, stabbed her, and left her to die on a hotel causeway. And one of the most necessary things to holding traffickers to account through our justice system requires us establishing trust with the victims. In fact, this woman was so afraid of her traffickers that she initially told law enforcement she had no idea who attacked her. But Richard True and Courtney Harrison, Courtney is with us today, investigators in our office who are very experienced in this work, put the case together, and in doing so gained the very needed trust and cooperation of not just the attempted murder victim, but of many other women who were actually slaves to these men. So this is just one case, obviously, but I share it today because it underscores the reality of human trafficking and the fact that it goes on right here where we live. So thank you again to everyone here covering this issue. Thank you to those of you in the community, in the nonprofit sector who devote your work and energy and your time to this issue. And for the public, let me just end by saying, if you see something, Sheriff Waters is right, please say something. We would rather go out, investigate, and dismiss a complaint as unfounded than have these crimes underreported. So thank you very much, and thank you for hosting today.
Good morning. Thank you, Sheriff Waters and Ms. Nelson, again, for having us as a great partner with your respective agencies. With our effort to end human trafficking here in Jacksonville, in Florida, and across the country. Human trafficking is modern-day slavery and a horrific crime affecting communities of all sizes. The FBI investigates all forms of human trafficking, from sex trafficking to labor trafficking, regardless of a victim's age or nationality. Unfortunately, the FBI caseload has increased significantly in recent years. As of this week, the FBI has more than 1,600 cases, human trafficking cases, open nationwide in each of our 56 field offices, and we are supporting more through partnerships with state and local agencies like we are doing here today. So our FBI Jacksonville field office is proud to partner with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office and the State Attorney's Office and the other agencies in our communities that are supporting this initiative today throughout the year. And we encourage the community to assist us. As was previously mentioned, if you do see something, please say something. Please call the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, or you can also reach out to our National Human Trafficking Hotline at 888-373-7888. Again, thank you for the community's support, and thank you to Sheriff Waters and Ms. Nelson.
Thank you, Sean, Ms. Nelson. In closing, I want to leave you with some information on human trafficking cases worked by JSO's Integrity Unit and our community partners in 2022. Just last year in Jacksonville, we rescued 10 human trafficking victims, 2 of whom were juveniles. In 2022, there were 74 arrests stemming from human trafficking investigations. 5 of those arrests were for felonies and are pending disposition. Thank you to our partners, again, in the Northeast Florida Human Trafficking Coalition for the important work that they do to support the victims of these horrible crimes. If you think that someone you know may be a victim of human trafficking, please act. Do not remain silent. Please report anything suspicious to law enforcement by calling 904-630-0500. If in case of an emergency, of course, 911. And email jsocrimetips@jacksheriff.org. If you want to remain anonymous, you can. Simply reach out to our partners at First Coast Crime Stoppers at 1-866-845-TIPS. And we're happy at this moment to take any questions if you have any.
Sheriff Waters, how does something like this begin in the first place? How do they target their victims?
It's difficult to tell. It could be a number of things. Dependency sometimes. An individual that is brought here to work in some of the local businesses, but it's a variety of different ways.
Sheriff, you had indicated the number of cases in 2022. At JCT, we had a story that said the numbers were down in 2021. So were 22's numbers higher, lower, any?
I'll get that answer for you. I'll get that answer for you, Dan.
Thank you, sir.
Would you say, the FBI said the numbers are going up, would you say the reporting is going up, or is it the occurrences going up? Do you think citizens are reporting more, or do you think there's more traffic?
There may be a combination of both of those factors. It's hard to say because there could be a lot of individuals that may not report it or may not know how to report it, especially those victims specifically that are in those situations and may not know that human trafficking statutes may apply to them.
And Ms. Nielsen, the case that you mentioned, when and where was that that you just mentioned with?
So actually, the trafficking involved men from Clay County. It occurred here, the attempted murder in Duval County. It was a case being prosecuted in Clay County, and during discovery depositions, the prosecutor actually recognized some information that led him to believe that human trafficking could be implicated, and so that led him to call our investigators who are dedicated to specifically human trafficking. They initiated an investigation and were able to solve the case and then find multiple other women who had been trafficked. To your question, Janice, about victims, how people get involved, what we see a theme in most of these cases is vulnerability, right? Young, generally it's women and girls, but who are compromised, as Sheriff mentioned, maybe dependency, runaways, already have potentially substance abuse addiction, which traffickers then use to keep them. In this case, the traffickers actually forced their victims to use fentanyl and made them use fentanyl, and the withdrawals of fentanyl are evidently very, very painful. And as I mentioned, when one finally escaped, they found her and attempted to kill her.
When was that case? What month?
Actually, it's Courtney, 2 years old?
2 years
Yeah,
old.
2 years old. JSO still had the surveillance video from the hotel, and that's how they were able to actually solve the case. But they were, I mean, it was as violent as you can imagine. Masked, caught her, beat her, kicked her, and then stabbed her. She was in the hospital for 5 days. Yeah. And the fact that she refused to participate initially underscores the seriousness of the, I guess, violence used and abuse used to silence victims. So it's really important for the people who do this work, the law enforcement officers who do this work, and our partners in the nonprofit. when you can establish trust with these victims, then it actually can open the door, as it did with this, to many other people, so.
Is there a specific age range as far as victims? Because I know this involves everything from sex trafficking to labor trafficking. So is there a particular age range in those
No,
categories?
it's
or just a wide
the
range?
whole gamut. So in the child exploitation cases, which obviously JSO works on the daily and the FBI does too, those are children. And sex and labor trafficking can be adults.
Are there protections for victims that you wanted to highlight in case they do want to come forward? I know you mentioned, overcoming the stigma of coming forward can be very difficult.
I don't know that it's so much stigma as it is fear of, oh, I'm sorry, of fear of being hurt or killed, or your loved ones being hurt or killed. So JSO, obviously, there's a national hotline. The FBI has resources, JSO has resources, and so does the state attorney's office in victim advocacy. And then there are several nonprofits throughout our community that provide services, employment, even housing to survivors of human trafficking.
Thank you.